In today's video, we're going to talk about one of Pearl Jam's most iconic hits, a song that defined a moment, but was also a song that frontman Eddie Vedder famously hated and even tried to give away. But the real secret of this rock anthem is almost controversy that goes back to a whole other band. We'll unravel the hidden story of the hit that was almost buried by its own creator, and the truth behind it, let's say borrowed melody. Before we get started with today's video, if you guys want to support my channel, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button. And I've been told from a lot of my subscribers that they find themselves unsubscribed from my channel, or they don't see my new videos pop up, so make sure you turn on all notifications. The mid-90s were a weird time for rock. The shock of Kurt Cobain's death in April of '94 had left this huge void, and a lot of people wondered if grunge had died with him. But out of all that, one band stood taller than ever, Pearl Jam. Their second record, 1993's Versus, hadn't just matched the success of their debut, 10, it completely smashed sales records. By any measure, they were the biggest rock band on the planet, but this was a crown they wore with a lot of discomfort. Pearl Jam, and especially frontman Eddie Vedder, were at war, not just with Ticketmaster, but with the whole idea of being rock stars. They famously pulled back from MTV, refused to make music videos, and were actively trying to dismantle the very machine that was making them famous. They were worried about longevity and protecting their music from the pressures of fame. It was in this pressure cooker of huge success and intense self-doubt that their third record, 1994's Vitalogy, was made. The recording sessions were famously tense. Communication was at an all-time low, and Vedder was starting to take more creative control. And at the center of all this conflict was a song, a perfect-sounding pop rock anthem that Vedder had written as a teenager, a song that he hated so much he tried to give away, a song that would become one of their biggest hits, completely against his will. That song was called Better Man. She lies and says she's in love. Long before he was the voice of a generation, Eddie Vedder was a teenager in San Diego, dealing with a complicated family life and pouring all that turmoil into a 4-track recorder. It was there, before he was even old enough to buy a beer, that Better Man was born. And this wasn't just some creative exercise. It was a raw, painful song about his own history. The lyrics tell a story of a woman who's stuck in a relationship that she can't leave, telling herself she's in love because she thinks she can't find a better man. It's a haunting story of quiet desperation, and for Vedder, it was deeply personal. Can't find a better man. He's openly said the song is about the difficult relationship his mother had with his stepfather, a man he once thought was his real father. At a now legendary show at the Fox Theater in Atlanta in April of 1994, Vedder introduced the song with a pretty blunt dedication, stating, "It's dedicated to the bastard that married my mama." This personal origin is key to understanding why Vedder had such a complicated relationship with it. He played the song with his pre-Pearl Jam band Bad Radio, but it always carried this weight. For him, it wasn't just a song, it was like a photograph of a painful time in his life. The world would hear a powerful rock anthem, but Vedder heard his own teenage angst and his mother's pain. This wasn't something he wanted to turn into a stadium sing-along. By the time Pearl Jam went into the studio to record their third album, things were tense. Producer Brendan O'Brien was back, trying to navigate the band's difficult dynamics. Founding guitarist Stone Gossard even admitted that he thought about quitting during this period. Into this atmosphere, O'Brien brought an opinion. Better Man was a hit. The band had messed around with it during the Versus sessions, but passed on it, partly because it sounded too accessible. Vedder was already suspicious of its catchy, radio-friendly sound. So when O'Brien listened to the track and said the two words that Vedder hated, it was like lighting a fuse. As Vedder recounted years later on the Howard Stern Show, O'Brien turned to him and said, "Ed, this is a great song. It's a hit song." Vedder's reaction was immediate and quite hostile. "Fuck you. I'm not putting this out then," he shot back. Vedder remembered seeing the other guys in the band just hang their heads, knowing that the producer's praise was the song's kiss of death. Now, to the outside world, being told you've written a hit is the goal. To Vedder in 1994, it felt like an artistic failure. His logic As he explained, was about self-preservation. The band had already pulled away from MTV and was trying to control their own situation to make it sustainable in the long run. Releasing a polished, blatantly great pop song, as the producer O'Brien called it, felt like giving to the very star-making machine they were fighting against. Better Man felt like a Trojan horse that would drag them right back into the commercial world that they were trying to escape. O'Brien admitted to Spin magazine in 2001 that he turned to the engineer in the studio and stated, "This is one of their best songs, and they're going to give it away. Can't happen." Vedder's opposition was so strong that he came up with a plan to get rid of the song completely. He wanted to donate it to a charity compilation album for Greenpeace called Alternative NRG. This seemed like the perfect solution. The song could do some good for a cause that they believed in, but it wouldn't be a Pearl Jam song in a way that would compromise their anti-commercial stance. But Vedder also had another condition. He didn't want to sing it. His idea was to have Chrissie Hynde, the iconic frontwoman of the Pretenders, perform the lead vocals. The band would record the backing track and Hynde would lend her legendary voice. This would distance the song even further from Pearl Jam's identity. It was a clever way to keep his bandmates who loved the song happy while also satisfying his own conscience. The stage was set. The song was about to be given away, but what happened in that studio would not only stop the plan, it would also uncover the song's hidden secret. As Pearl Jam started recording the backing track, there was an unexpected person in the studio with them, Dave Wakeling. Wakeling was involved in the Alternative NRG project for Greenpeace, but more importantly, he was the lead singer and songwriter for the English group The Beat, or the English Beat as they were known in North America as. The Beat, which rose from the late 1970s two-tone movement, had fallen apart by the mid-80s, but not before having some success of their own thanks to songs like Can't Get Used to Losing You, Hands Off, She's Mine, and Tears of a Clown. The Beat also found success in the US as well. Their energetic instrumental March of the Swivelheads even was featured during the fast-paced closing scene of the hit teen comedy Ferris Bueller's Day Off. As Pearl Jam played, Wakeling listened. The chord progression, the driving rhythm, it all sounded incredibly familiar. He watched guitarist Stone Gossard's hands on the fretboard, and according to Wakeling's account, Gossard saw him watching and gave him a knowing nod. During a break, the unspoken feeling became an open admission. Wakeling recalled the moment in an interview stating, he said, "Yeah, you're right, it's the same song," and I went, "What? I thought it might be." The song Gossard was admitting Better Man was based on was the Beat's 1980s classic, Save It for Later. Suddenly, the mood in the room got a little weird. This wasn't some formal accusation of plagiarism. It was a candid, real-time admission between musicians. Turns out, Eddie Vedder had worked as an intern at a San Diego radio station, 91X, and Save It for Later was reportedly one of his favorite songs that got played all the time. The influence wasn't just a coincidence. It was a deep subconscious borrowing from a song that had been part of Vedder's musical DNA for years. This is a pretty rare thing in rock history. It's almost unheard of for a band to be caught in the act in the studio by the very artist they borrowed from, and then just openly admit it. The irony is that this all happened at the exact moment Vedder was trying to give the song away. To really get the story, you have to understand Save It for Later. It was released on the Beat's 1982 album Special Beat Service. It has a unique driving acoustic riff with an unusual open tuning that gives it a distinctive ring. It's actually the Beat's highest earning song from their catalog to this day. For a young Eddie Vedder working at a radio station, it would have been everywhere. The musical similarity isn't subtle either. The chord progression and the rhythmic feel of the main guitar riff in Better Man are undeniably close to Save It for Later. But what makes the story so unique is Dave Wakeling's incredibly relaxed attitude about this whole thing. He never pursued legal action or expressed any real anger. He admitted, "It's the same song, and I think the association is so nice that I've never bothered to chase any money on it." In fact, the connection between the songs has become a celebrated part of both bands' histories. Pearl Jam frequently mashes up the two songs during live shows, often moving the end of Better Man right into the verse of Save It for Later. It's their way of tipping their hat to the original, and in a cool nod back, Wakeling has been known to perform a verse of Better Man in the middle of his own song.
Don't run away. Don't run away.
What could have been a messy legal fight instead became this public acknowledgement of musical lineage. In the end, the plan to give Better Man away to Greenpeace ended up falling apart. Chrissie Hynde never made it to the studio, and the session, which according to Wakeling cost Greenpeace a good chunk of money, around $20,000 US, produced nothing for the album. But Pearl Jam, in a classy move, sent Wakeling a check covering the studio costs. The story goes that when Pearl Jam's label Epic Records got wind that the band was sitting on a potential classic and just planned to discard it, they may have intervened. O'Brien recorded a couple of the band's performances at the Fox Theater in Atlanta and mixed them into a demo. Vedder finally started warming up to the idea of releasing the song. After much reluctance, Eddie Vedder finally gave in, and Better Man would be a Pearl Jam song, and it was finally released on 1994's Vitalogy. Pearl Jam was already performing Better Man live as part of their sets before the official studio recording was even complete for Vitalogy. Even then, though, Vedder wasn't done fighting it. In a final act of compromise, he and Brendan O'Brien recorded a new stripped-down intro with just Vedder's voice, guitar, and a pump organ, something that O'Brien actually played himself. The quiet opening was then spliced onto the front of the big studio recording, creating this dynamic build-up that the track is known for. O'Brien admitted about the pump organ, "That's so John Paul Jones. I'm sure I ripped the sound off from him because he would do stuff, especially on their first album, where he would double track the organ, like on the beginning of Your Time Is Gonna Come. That's double tracked organ." When Vitalogy was released in late 1994, Pearl Jam made another defiant move. They released no commercial single for Better Man in the US, which meant it wasn't eligible for the Billboard Hot 100 chart. It was another attempt to subvert the system, but it didn't work. Radio stations immediately jumped on the song, and Better Man became an absolute monster on the airwaves, a runaway train the band couldn't stop. It hit number 1 on the Billboard Mainstream Rock Tracks chart and stayed there for an incredible 8 weeks. It also peaked at number 2 on the Alternative Airplay chart, and also was a crossover hit, peaking at number 13 on the Hot 100 chart. A song Vedder wrote as a teen about his family's pain that he tried to bury and then give away, a song built on a borrowed riff, had become one of the biggest songs of the year. Today, Better Man is one of the most beloved songs in Pearl Jam's entire catalog, and it's a staple of their live shows where it often turns into a massive cathartic sing-along with the audiences taking over from the very first line. The irony is pretty thick. The song Vedder never wanted to be a stadium anthem has become one of the ultimate stadium anthems. When the band was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2017, Better Man was also performed by the group. Vedder's relationship with the song has clearly changed. He seems to have made peace with its power and its place in the band's history, but he still acknowledges its dark origins, recently joking at a show that it's a terrible wedding song because it's about an abusive relationship. But the hostility is gone, replaced by an appreciation for the connection it creates with his fans and audiences. The story of Better Man is really a story of Pearl Jam in a nutshell. It's a song that survived its own author's attempts to kill it. Everything kind of came full circle last year when Vedder dropped a stripped-back cover of Save It for Later for Season 3 of the TV show The Bear. Too bad he didn't sneak in a bit of Better Man at the end. This wasn't the first time Pearl Jam had resisted putting a song out. On their debut album, the song Black achieved notable commercial success, particularly considering it was never officially released as a single due to the band's resistance. Pearl Jam's resistance to releasing Black as a single stemmed primarily from the deeply personal nature of the song and the group's desire to protect its emotional integrity from the pressures of commercialism. The song, which was written by guitarist Stone Gossard with the lyrics by Eddie Vedder, explored the pain and longing of lost love, which Vedder described as being, and I quote, about first relationships and the difficulty of letting go. Vedder felt the vulnerability in Black made it susceptible to being crushed by the business, expressing concern that the true emotion of the song could be diminished if it was subjected to extensive marketing or a music video. Now, despite this, their label Epic Records pushed for its release to capitalize on the massive success of 10. But Pearl Jam held firm in their decision. They feared overexposure and wanted to draw a line between their art and the commercial interests of the industry. Ironically, even without an official single release or video, Black became a fan favorite and remains one of Pearl Jam's most beloved and acclaimed songs, highlighting how its raw emotional impact resonated widely regardless of its commercial position. Despite never getting an official single release, Black reached number 3 on the US Billboard Mainstream Rock Tracks chart and number 20 on the alternative charts in 1993. Vitalogy also had some other hugely successful singles, including Spin the Black Circle, which won the group a Grammy Award in 1996, and it was also a top 20 hit on the mainstream and alternative rock charts, as well as it was a crossover hit, peaking at number 18 on the Hot 100 chart. The album produced 2 other singles, and Not For You, which peaked at number 12 and 38 on the mainstream and alternative rock chart, and Immortality, which peaked at number 10 and 31 on the same charts. So what do you guys think? Is Better Man a case of inspired borrowing or something more? And was Eddie Vedder right to try and suppress the song he felt was too commercial? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. That brings us to the end of today's video, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again on Rock and Roll True Stories. Take care.